Flying machines. Both his observations on anatomy and his analysis of the physics convinced Leonardo that it was possible to build a winged mechanism that would allow humans to fly. A bird is an instrument working according to mathematical law, and it is in the capacity of man to reproduce such an instrument, he wrote. A man with wings large enough and duly attached might learn to overcome the resistance of the air and raise himself upon it. Combining engineering with physics and anatomy, Leonardo began in the late 4080s to devise contraptions to accomplish this. His first design, Figure 50, looks like a big bowl with four oar-like blades that were to alternate in pairs moving up and down like the four-winged dragonfly he had studied earlier. To overcome the relative weakness of human breast muscles, this cross between flying saucer and the held club torture chamber has the operator use his legs to push pedals, his arms to crank a gear and pulley mechanism, his head to pump a piston, and his shoulders to pull cables. It is unclear how he would manage to steer the machine. 7 pages later, in the same notebook, Leonardo produced an elegant drawing, Figure 51, of an experiment that used a bat-like wing, its thin bones covered with a membrane of skin rather than feathers, that was similar to those he had drawn for theatrical productions back in Florence. The wing is attached to thick wooden plank, which he specified should weigh 150 pounds, like an average man, and 2 lever mechanisms that would pump the wing. Leonardo even drew an amusing man in motion, jumping up and down on top of the end of the long lever. A little sketch below shows a clever element. When the wing is swinging upward, a hinge allows it to point its tips downward and encounter less resistance, then slowly be moved by spring and pull it back into rigid position. Later ideas included devising skin flaps in the wings that would be closed on the downswing but fly open on the upswing to minimize air resistance. At times, Leonardo abandoned the hope of achieving self-propelled flight and designed gliders instead. One of these was shown to be basically workable in reconstruction done 500 years later by the ITN television network in Britain. However, for most of this career he remained committed to achieving human-powered flight in bird-like devices with flapping wings. He drew more than a dozen variations using pedals and levers with the pilot prone or standing, and began referring to his machine as the uccello or bird. In his spacious accommodations at the Corte Vecchia, Leonardo had what he called la mia fabbrica, my factory. In addition to being the room where he had worked on the ill-fated horse monument for the Sforzas, it provided space for experimenting with flying machines. At one point he wrote himself a note about how to conduct a flight experiment on the roof without being seen by the workers constructing a tower. The Tiburio that he had failed in the competition to design on the cathedral next door. Make a large and tall model, and you will have room on the upper roof, he wrote. If you stand on the roof at the side of the tower, the man at work up on the Tiburio will not see you. At other times he envisioned testing a machine over water while wearing a life preserver. You will experiment with this machine over a lake, and you will wear as a belt a long wine skin, so that if you fall in, you will not drown. And finally, when all of his experiments were nearing an end, he mingled his plans with fantasies. The large bird will take its first flight from the back of the great swan, he wrote on the last folio of his Codex on the Flight of Birds, referring to Swan Mountain, Monte Sicily, near Fiesole. Filling the universe with amusement, filling all writings with its fame, and bringing eternal glory to the nest where it was born.